I got a phone call from a hospital in Matapedia, Quebec, that my mother is not going to live to the end of the week. So I went and I had to get a plane ticket to fly to Moncton, New Brunswick, where I have to rent a car and drive 3, 4 hours to get to that hospital. My brother was able to book a ticket right away through WestJet. Um, I kept trying, and by the time I got my ticket the next day, his ticket was $800. The next day for the same flight, my ticket was 1,380 some dollars. And whatever we booked, I booked my flight online and the rental car through Hertz Rental. Uh, so that's fine. I flew on the plane, my brother and I. We get to the airport. Uh, I went to pick up my rental car, and they said, "You're not giving it to me without a deposit," which I said, "Fine, here's my Visa debit." They said, "No, we're not accepting your debit card." I'm like, "Excuse me, it's a Visa debit. That's how I booked my ticket. That's how I did it before. A couple months before that, I flew to the town of Moncton because I did not realize I flew to the town of Fredericton because I did not realize Moncton was closer. And I rented a plane ticket and the car all online like I did this time. But this time they would not give me the car. And I'm explaining to them, I have to drive another four hours to go see my dying mother. She's supposed to be not making it to the weekend. And they're like, we don't, it's not our problem, sir. Your credit card's not valid here in New Brunswick. My debit card is not good enough. And I'm like, well, what do you mean it's not good enough? I went online and I rented the ticket, paid the tickets, paid for everything, and it's good. But now we want a deposit, sir, and we want a valid credit card. I'm like, this is a valid Visa debit. They said, no, sir, it's only good if you had an American one. I'm like, excuse me? Yeah, if you had an American debit, we would rent you the car. I'm like, we're in Canada, New Brunswick. What do you mean I need an American card? And this is not the first time that I've flown down here. They said, sorry, sir, we still want that $377 deposit off your credit card before we will rent you the car. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll go to the machine, I'll haul $1,000 out. This is how important this is to me, and I'll give you $1,000 cash. And when I drop the car back off, you keep what you need and give me the rest. They said no. They want a valid credit card, which my Visa debit worked before. But online, it paid for everything. It let me get the tickets, it let me reserve the car, but now they won't give it to me because I can't give them a deposit. So being that I'm upset, I checked all the rental cars there. There was Thrifty, there was Hertz, there was Enterprise, all the car dealer, all the rental cars were there. And they all said the same thing. They want an American Visa debit or a Canadian valid credit card, which my debit card is a Visa debit and it's been working everywhere I go. So that being said, they kicked me out of the airport. My brother and I, we had to get a taxi to take us to a motel, which we're supposed to be on the road to see my dying mother. But now we're sitting at this motel because they wouldn't give us the rental car. So my girlfriend goes online again and she calls Thrifty, lets Thrifty know what's going on, and asks, can we rent this car, pay the deposit online instead of having to pay it when I'm face to face? They said yes. So she goes online, rents this car. They take the money out of my bank account. And my woman calls me back, says, okay, you guys can go grab that car in the morning. It's dealt with. I'm like, thank you. We wake up the next morning in a snowstorm. They're the worst storm of the year. We go back to the airport. We go to Thrifty, and they say they want a deposit. I'm like, ma'am, we did all this last night. My woman went online and talked. No, sir. She went online and paid for the car. We want the deposit up front right now with a debit card, with a Visa card. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, I have a Visa debit. No, sir, that's not good enough. I really swore like my woman was thorough the night before. She knows I need to get to the hospital. So she explained to them and they said yes, took my money. And when we got there the next morning, they said no. Kicked us out of the airport again without a rental car. So now my brother and I are standing there like, we're not rich. We can't afford another motel. Our mom's dying and we have a 4-hour drive to get there. We don't know what to do. We're distraught. We're begging these people, like, come on, there's got to be something we can do. No, sir, not unless you have a valid credit card. I said, my Visa debit's good anywhere else in Canada. She says, if you had an American Visa debit, we'd do it. I'm like, how can you do that? This is a Canadian airport. We're in Canada, New Brunswick, and I need an American Visa debit to get my rental. So I rented the car before. I've been on this trip before to see my mom. I just did it 4 months ago. He's rented me a vehicle, never even asked for my debit card when I showed up at the airport. I showed you my license and you give me the darn card. But oh, sir, that must have been an error. They made a mistake. I'm like, the only mistake is here now. You're in Canada treating us Canadians like we're not worth it. My debit card's no good because you're an American company working out of a Canadian province. I don't get it. So then we called around again. I went to different rental companies that were outside the airport. And my friend called down with his credit card and he was able to rent me a car on the phone, but it wasn't at the airport. So I got the car, my brother and I, and we drove in this snowstorm, which was so crazy bad. This 3.5, 4 hour drive turned into a 6, 7 hour drive. I finally made it to Matapedia, New Brunswick. I get in to see my mom, and she dies as we get there. We're not even there 3 hours, and she died in her bed. So this airport denied me the grieving time I needed to see my mom before she passed away. Like, I paid for that car, and still today they have not sent me back my money. They said, you rented it, not our problem, you didn't take it. But it is their problem. They wouldn't accept my money. They wouldn't accept my Visa debit. They did it online, but wouldn't accept it in front of me. And my name was printed on the debit card. Like, it's not like it was a blank card. It said my name and everything. Like, and they wouldn't let me. So I get there, finally get a rental car outside the airport, get to my mom, and she dies. I didn't even have time to really be with her. Like, I had to deal with the doctors when we got there and all that. But by the time we sat down and beside my mom to let her know we were there, an hour and a half, she dies. And our plane ticket was from the 9th. I flew the 10th, from the 9th to the 16th. And she dies when we get there. I don't want to stay there to the 16th, My mom's already dead. And we call WestJet. My brother called WestJet for $150. They gave him his ticket for the very next day. He did not have to stay for the next 6 days. So I called to do the same thing. And because I did not get exactly the same ticket he got for $800, mine was $1,380. And I went through a company called Flight Hub. That Flight Hub wouldn't answer my calls. Flight Hub wouldn't, and WestJet wouldn't help me because I went through Flight Hub, even though it's a WestJet ticket. They ended up making me pay $680 more to fly out the next day. And because I didn't want to wait to the 16th. So I flew out the next day. They flew us to Calgary, Alberta. And from Calgary, Alberta to Edmonton is a 31-minute flight. Well, the plane's engine wouldn't work. They announced it over the computer, over the radio, that the engine isn't working the way it should. And that's why we sat on the runway for 3 hours. And then I spoke up and said, well, you think I feel safe to fly the plane now that the engine didn't work? And we're all still sitting here? And then everyone else said the same thing. So the pilot put the plane back at the dock, let us all out of the plane, and said they're going to fix our tickets or find another plane or blah, blah, blah. Go downstairs. This is where you get your luggage. As we're waiting downstairs, they changed my flight ticket from that day to the 15th. So my 31-minute flight now turned in that I have to wait in their airport for 2 days. And then the ticket says I'm flying to BC, then back to Edmonton. So my 31-minute flight turned into 2 days in the airport. Plus, I had to take extra hours to fly. And this is all on, they say they're not reimbursing. It's all on us. Like, I don't understand how they could do that to us. They raped me to go see my dying mom. And then they wouldn't let me have the rental car because I don't have an American Visa debit. And we're in Canada. Like, I pay my taxes, I do everything. I'm a law-abiding citizen, and I wasn't allowed a rental card because I didn't have a American Visa debit or a valid big MasterCard credit, whatever you want to call it, Master Visa. But my debit was a Visa debit, and I don't think it's fair. I don't. And right now, still today, we've sent them, I don't know, 30, 40 messages. And I told them we're going to go talk to you today and everything. They don't care. They're not giving me back my money. They told me it's not their problem that I didn't do it properly. And it's not their problem that my mom died. And they're sorry to hear that it happened. But meanwhile, I'm out all this crazy money. Even the airport didn't help by making me buy that extra ticket just to come home. I just paid $1,380 some dollars. Now I have to pay $680 to go home earlier. I don't know what to do. I almost broke down and cried in the airport. I'm a grown man. I think I'm a tough guy, but this was very dramatic. It was very traumatizing. My brother and I didn't know what to do. We're grown men stuck in an airport after we paid for our rental car, trying to get to our dying mom. I have two taxis, a motel, the extra foods. Like, I spent at least $1,000 more because of them. And the other rental company, well, that cost me way more also because I didn't get it with my ticket. I didn't get the discount. They charged all the kilometers. Like, there was over 1,000 kilometers to go to my mother and back to the rental company. And even those guys, I had the car exactly. I left at 4 o'clock that night, and the next day I was back before 4. That's only 24 hours, but they charged me for 2 days of usage plus the kilometers. Like, and they're an American company also. It's just like I don't know. They're just out raping us. And I don't care about the other rental companies. I got to see my mom, but the thrifty, they owe me my money back, and they should be the ones paying for my taxi drives and my motel that night. They're the reasons why I did not get to see my dying mother properly. They should be held accountable. They're not allowed to do this to people. It's not like I was in there trying to rob them or being rude. I was being polite and begging them to help us, and they just turned us down and said leave.